Good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. I'm out today for a short hike, a very short hike in fact, up to a local woodland where I'm going to put up a Hennesey hammock, and I'm going to show you how I do that. There's a couple of ways of doing it, about 3 different ways of doing it, probably more in fact, I'm sure somebody will correct me, but I'm going to show you how I hang my hammock. And I'm literally going to chill out, have a butty, have a brew and just chill out in the woods. So I'm about to enter a dark tunnel, so I'm going to bring you back in a little while. So the plan is, I'm going to fasten, let me just show you, I'm going to fasten the hammock between a couple of trees. It's about 20 feet, something like that, 20 feet ish, maybe 25 feet of length. It includes the rope and the hammock itself. So if you look at that tree there, I'm going to fasten to that tree and I'm going to run it from this tree that my bag's hanging on. This camera's actually attached to my bag at the moment. So I'm going to run it from here straight across to that tree there. Nice quick easy setup. I'm going to make some tent pegs to peg the tarp out. There's some guy lines that come off the tarp and you can sort of stick them into the ground, so that's how I'm going to mount that today, because there aren't any branches nearby that I can fasten it to, particularly when I want to use this stretch to hang the hammock across here. So I'm going to use something called tree huggers, they've been called, or can just be, you know, tree straps. You might also hear them referred to attach to the tree first. That's what you're going to see me do. On those straps will be climbing carabiners and some rappel rings, so I'll get those out and I'll show you them. Right, okay, so those straps that I was telling you about, so here they are. Just unravel them. So I always have them at the top of the pack ready to deploy first. So it's about a metre long is this first strap. You can see here, climbing strength carabiners. Don't use those cheap nasty things for hanging lightweight things off of your bag, because they won't take your weight and you're going to get hurt, potentially badly injured, which you really don't when you're out in the middle of nowhere. So these here, these will take, I can't remember what the rating is on them, it's about 4 tons or something, might be 4 tons. Obviously the rappel rings, nice and strong these are solid. Alright, so I'm going to mount it first, this one first, over on that tree, so I'll show you that. I'm going to go around the tree that way, and then I'm going to just pop that through the loop. So in fact, I'll tell you what, right, these straps here, they've got loops in the end. Okay, 1, 2, this material, it's like seatbelt material, so it's extremely strong. So anyway, back around the tree, taking it, it says normally that if you look this up online, it probably tells you about eye level. I always go a little bit higher than my height, just because of how I like to hang the hammock. So I'm going to loop that through there, like so. I'm going to take that carabiner off there because I'm going to put that on the other loop. So I'm just going to push that up to the bark of the tree. So I'll show you. So that's, you can see there, it's like I've pulled it back on itself. So now, I'll just make sure that's steady, don't want it falling out. So now, I'm going to take that carabiner, put that through the loop there. That's the first one on, alright. So when I pull on that, I mean I've got my full weight on that, it's not going anywhere at all, like that. So that's the first one on. Let's get the second on. Right, so that's the hammock. Weighs approximately 1.5 kilos, so it's nice and light. So the way I wrap it is, I wrap it up in this, you can see this concertinaed snake skin type thing. And these are actually called snake skins that are on it. And that's to help protect it, and obviously helps for quick deployment of the hammock as well. So these are all climbing type ropes, as you can see there. This is important because I'm going to show you how we use those, and also gives you an indication of the strength that's involved. So these are marked, and it's handy to do this once you determine which end of your hammock is the foot end. The foot end is in this particular hammock anyway, this is the Hennesey Hammock Deluxe. It's got a Velcro opening at the bottom, or opening closing bit at the bottom. You enter the hammock from underneath, and I'll show you that in a bit when I get it up. But the foot end of the hammock is the bit that you'll get in. That's the end you'll get in. So I mark that as the foot end, because it might be that actually I want to hang one side of the hammock a little bit higher than the other, so that I'm in a more sat up position, if that makes sense. It's going to be relatively flat today because we've got the tree huggers at the same height. Alright, so foot end with the tape on, tape wrapped round, bit of masking tape, and the head end. Right, I'll show you how that goes up. So since you're already mounted in the tree there, I'm going to start with the head end. So I'm going to keep hold of this under my arm, alright? So I've got a head end. So these rings here, hopefully you can see it. I'm going to come through the two rings together, alright? Then I'm going to come back through again, but then separate those two rings and go through the middle there and pull through like so. And when you pull, you put some tension on from this direction. Just pull those rings together again. That's it, it's tight, it's nice and tight now. It's not 100% secure, but it's about 80 or 90% secure, and I'll show you how you get it fully secure at the end. As you saw there, it just slipped a little bit then. Alright, these rings grip it, stop it from sliding through anymore. And then when you want to adjust it, you pull on the other one and it slides through easily. Alright, so I'll show you a close-up of that, just bear with me. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit tricky doing it with one hand, but I'll try and show you with one hand, because you can do it with one hand. That's the beauty of this system. So if I pull that out again, the head end rope, okay, I'm going to come through the back here. Alright, I'm going to come round, pull a bit through, I'm going to go through again, but as I go through, I'm going to come through the first ring and I'm going to pull along that there. Okay, I'm going to pull them both to begin with. Alright, both feeds of the rope, because that's going to help to cinch it down, so that when I pull on this shorter end here, it gives me the adjustment that I want, but then when you pull back, it cinches down, it's nice and strong. Alright, so we're going to leave that there for now. I'm not going to fully tie that off just yet, I'm just going to leave that there as it is for now. So the rope, the other end is hanging down. I don't normally like to do that, but it's not drenched on the ground today, so I'm happy to do that, but I don't want it getting drenched, the rope, if I can help it, but I'm doing it today. Obviously I'd normally be using both hands, but because I'm using this camera to show you guys, it's not happening. So I'm unraveling this snake-like thing, which is the hammock. It's that, and that's the hammock enclosure, if you like. And then I'm coming to these rappel rings at this side. So hopefully you can see from that end. Sorry, this branch is in the way. Alright, so foot end. Alright, bring it a bit closer. It's going through the back, yeah. It's coming round and it's coming through again. It's going through the back again, but this time I'm separating those two rings like so, putting it in between the two rings. That's because that's the bit that it's going to cinch down, and when you put pressure on, the rings pull together and they cinch down it to stop it from sliding back once you've got tension on it. Right, so there I'm pulling, there's nothing at the moment, but as soon as I've got to pull on that one, it's nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. Alright, so that's that side up. So at the moment, this is going to be, I'm going to lay it on the ground. Again, it's not something I normally do because I'm very careful with my gear. But I'm going to adjust this just literally by taking hold of the short end and pulling on it like so. It's going to raise the hammock off of the ground. Alright, it's getting to the end of its adjustment now. It's adjustment point, you can see it's right near the end of the rope. It's not going to move past this point here where this prusik knot is. So now I'm going to adjust at this end. I'm doing exactly the same. Take hold of the short end of the rope and just pull it through, checking the height. I want this at about waist height for me, well, about groin height actually for me, for my setting, for my height and everything. So I'm going to take it to about there. So when I push on it, when I push down on it, because bear in mind it's going to take the weight of your body, it's about groin height for me, is that alright? So that's that first bit. I'm going to leave this as it is for now. I'm not going to tie that off just yet. I will tie an extra securing knot right at the end, same at this side as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slide these snake skins back like so. So start with this end. So it's a lot easier doing this with two hands, but for the purpose of this demonstration obviously I'm doing it one-handed. But the fact that you can do it one-handed says a lot, doesn't it? If you're having to hold onto something in your other hand, perhaps some paracord, I don't know, whatever it is that you might have to keep hold of, sort of bunch that up at the end, you can do it one-handed, yeah? So that's the first bit out. So the next bit then, this is a bit tighter because when I packed it last time I was in a bit of a rush to pack it, so it's packed a bit tighter than I normally pack it. Right, but it's past that tight bit now, so we roll it back like so. Again, one-handed. Bunch that bit up at the end like so. Right, and that's the hammock out, alright? So this bit is the tarp. This tarp's fastened to the ridge line because there's a ridge line that runs all the way through it. This bit here is the hammock. This here is the ridge line that runs through it. It's quite handy because it's got like a little pocket thing that you can hang belongings in as well inside off that ridge line. You can also hang like your boots off it if you want to inside as well. I tend not to. I tend to have them underneath the hammock in a dry bag or something. And then it fastens itself, the ridge line fastens itself underneath this protective cover onto the rope. So I can adjust this tarp here, which I'll do when I've finished pegging all this out, but I can adjust this tarp. At the moment I'm going to take some tension off of this. That there is a prusik knot here. So the way that works is as you pull in that direction, it grips the rope, but I'm going to straighten it off like that and I'm going to slide it down just so that that tarp's nice and loose. I'm going to do the same at this end. I'm just going to slacken it off just a little bit, alright? So to slacken these off, I straighten it up so that if you imagine it almost being a T shape, sort of that's the top bar of the T and that's the long bar of the T, and then I'm going to slide that, hang on, just take that tension off, and I'm going to slide that down. Right, so that is just to take the tension off the tarp for now. The tarp will come around like so, and I'll be pegging it. In fact, it's wrapped around. Let me just unwrap it. I'll unwrap it a little bit more. It's just twisted round on itself, that's all. So untwist that. Like so. Right, so that's it. So you've essentially got the hammock bit, alright? You can see how low it is to the ground now, can't you? The hammock. Alright, so this is why I set it at groin height, because I know it's going to sit quite near to the ground by the time I've done. It's not going to stay at groin height. Alright, so I'm going to get my knife out. I'm going to find some twigs and I'm going to fashion some tent pegs. So I'll pop you on ground and you can watch me do that. Because I'm going to sit down to make some tent pegs, I'm going to show you this tie off process because I'm going to do this right now, okay? So I'm going to tie off a couple of knots around this side, alright, just to secure it at that end, just in case for some reason those rings move and then it decides to sort of slacken itself off and then collapse underneath me. Right, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm literally going to take this rope, double it over. This is how I fasten it. Look, you fasten it however you want to fasten it to make sure that it's secure, but this is how I do it. So I come through the ropes, back through the rings, not the ropes, here, and then tie a knot at that side. So I'm going to bring that through there as one knot to begin with, and I'm going to fetch it through the rings, sorry. Oh, I told you wrong to me, and then I'm just going to literally just pull it through there. So I've gone one knot on the rope, and then 1 knot through there, and then that, I'll tell you now, that will go nowhere now. If it starts to slip, it'll just pull on these, and it'll just, you know, it's not going to go anywhere, and it's going to give me enough time to let me know as well if anything's not quite right. But there's a double knot there, overhand knot, what you're going to call it, double overhand knot, that's going to secure that in place there. The way that I'm going to sit on the tarp, you do need to be a little bit careful. First few times I did this, it ended up flicking me out and throwing me onto the ground, and I've hurt myself actually. I've injured myself doing that before. All part of the fun. I don't want to put anybody off. I wasn't badly injured. I think my pride was injured more than anything else. But so essentially, it's got like the shape of a chair, if you like, here, the way that it's sort of bunched up here. I'm going to take this bit, I'm going to put both hands onto the sides, hold onto it, and I'm just going to rest my backside into it like that, pull it forward a bit. My back's against the ridge line, and the rest of the hammock acts as the back of the chair, and because it's tensioned, it's all nicely shaped, just in the right place. My knees are roughly 90 degrees, and that's pretty much where I want it to be. It's not difficult. You don't have to be some super expert in whittling or anything like that. Just literally get yourself a strong enough twig. I've got a little pocket knife, a little folding pocket knife here, courtesy of my colleagues at work. They all clubbed together and got me this beautiful knife, a Barlow style knife. Any of you are interested, I forget the brand, it's called Witness or something like that. It's a Sheffield steel brand. They're all handmade, lovely piece, but I'll show you that in a minute because I'm going to use that to actually fashion it properly. But I'm just going to use this pocket saw just to cut it down to get it to the size that I want it to begin with. There we go. So I've got these two roughly the same length. There we go. So I've got these two roughly the same length twigs now, if you want to call them that. We're going to fashion those into the peg. So the first thing I'm going to do with these is I'm going to fashion the top end with a V cut in it, which essentially is going to allow me to wrap the paracord around it, and it's going to be relatively secure. It's going to stop it from sliding up and down the twig. Alright, so I'll take the knife. So I'm always going to make sure, if I'm going to push on this, I'm going to use my thumb behind it. I'm going to make sure my fingers are out of the way. I'm not teaching anybody to suck eggs here, by the way. I'm sure some of you that are watching this already know, but I can guarantee there'll be somebody that doesn't. Alright, so I'm cutting a notch in the first cut, as so. I'm going to cut a notch from the other side now. I'm actually going to take it from that end. I'm just going to be very careful of how much pressure I'm putting on, because I'm conscious that I'm cutting a little bit towards my body. So I'm not putting a load of pressure on because I don't want to slip and injure myself in the woods where I'm on my own. I do have a first aid kit, but this, I can tell you, this knife is exceptionally sharp because I've stropped it, and it gets stropped regularly. I'll be stropped after this as well. So I do not want to be slipping and injuring myself with this knife. So I'm just going to work it a little bit at a time. I'm going to start to lift that piece out like so. That's the first bit done. Alright, then I'm literally going to shave it deeper, roll my knife across the top of those little bits there, and it should help them to come off like so. And I'm not putting loads of pressure on here, so that I'm not putting myself in a position where I'm going to slip and cut into my tendons, cut into my finger. And I'm literally just going to shave those bits out like so. Right, so you can see, just neaten it off a little bit. It's a bit of a kind of a C/V shaped, I don't know what you call it, carved piece. I'm going to take it a little bit deeper actually. It's quite thick, is this twig. Obviously you don't want to really be going much past halfway through the wood, especially if your twig's quite thin, because it's not going to have any strength, and you want it to have its strength there. So that's about as deep as I'm going to take that. Alright, so it's a kind of a V notch. It's about a third of the way through that piece of wood, so I'm going to do the same with the other. Alright, so I've done that one about the same. It's about a third of the way through. Alright. Right, so the next thing, I'm just going to sharpen the end so it'll actually stick into the ground. Always away from the body. You notice, elbows are on my knees, I'm sat down, my hands are well in front of me, they're well away from my legs, it's well away, cutting away from my legs, cutting away from where arteries and tendons and things are, so if something goes wrong and I slip, I'm away from those really important and vulnerable parts of my body. We don't want to get hurt when we're in the woods at any time, you know, really, but essentially when you're on your own in the woods, you are on your own, and I'm only, you know, just over a mile away from the car, but if I were that badly injured I couldn't get back to the car. There's nobody else here, there's nobody walked through here at all whilst I've been here nearly an hour, and nobody's been through, so essentially I'll be here potentially seriously injured, waiting for somebody to come through. I have got a signal here, so I would be able to send for help, and there are people that know this spot, that know me, but you just don't want it, do you? You just don't want that situation in the first place. So it's better to be avoided just by taking some care and just being mindful of how you're using edged tools. I'll do. So that's the first peg. Alright, that's done. So I've got my 2 pegs. I'm going to get these in the ground, get the tarp fastened out, and then get a brew on the go. So these here, you might be wondering what these lines are for here. So these are a bungee cord, and you just fasten these out. Again, fasten them out to a ground or to a tree, and they pull the hammock out at the bottom, so you got some, it's opened out at the bottom in an asymmetrical kind of shape, and you do that each end, and then when you get in, obviously because you'll be pulling on it, it moves on the bungee, so it doesn't snap any cordage, it just sort of flexes, but it just keeps a bit of shape, so that when you're inside it just helps to keep that bit of shape. It can help to keep it off your face as well a little bit. And that is it. So there's one of those either side. I'm not going to put those out today because I'm using it as a chair. I will show you later on how I get into it, how we actually get right inside it, but for now I'm using it as a chair. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put this item down. It's the XL size DD Magic Carpet. Anything that I say, all these products that I use, by the way, they're all bought myself. I'm not affiliated to any of them, you know, nothing like that. But I know people like to know what it is that I'm using, so that's the only reason I'm telling you. This is a size XL. You can use them as an emergency tarp. You could use it as an emergency poncho at a push. It's not going to give you, well, just the same way that you might use a wool blanket to make it into a schmock, a makeshift schmock, you could do that with this. But today I'm going to use it as a ground sheet. I'm just going to pop the citronella candle nearer to you guys. We don't want any fires. I'm just going to lay this out like so. I'm just going to lay this out. If it was a windy day, it's got 4 pegging points on it, so I peg it out. But it should be just fine like this. So I've got a place I can chuck my equipment onto and I can see it. I will be kicking my boots and stuff off soon because that's what I like to do, because I want to kick back and get in the hammock. I've actually brought some different footwear to slip on, or sometimes I just end up in my bare feet, to be fair. I'll just stand in this. I'm going to half it actually in size. Don't need it to be its full size. It's something like 2.2 metres by 1.5, I think, thereabouts. You better find the measurements online if you want them. I'll put them in the comments later on. Okay, so that's that down. It's time to get a brew on. Alright, for those that are interested, I'll show you my brew kit. Literally got a little titanium cup that has a lid, little fold out silicone cup. I always carry like a solder resistant, heat resistant mat with me as well. I'm going to pop that down. And today I'll be using one of the X-Boil stoves. That's the extra large X-Boil safety alcohol burner, and that's the original size. I'll use the original size today. I'm not in a massive rush to get things boiled. It does work quite well though anyway. Essentially it consists of this steel wind protector or windshield. That's it, it clips together like that, it's done, goes onto there. There are some little pot hangers that go on, which go on like so. You need to be careful you don't lose these, because I lost a set and I ended up having to buy 2 sets and they're expensive, very expensive. I bought 2 sets and I forget now how much they were. It was more than 20 quid though for these little things. I think the titanium though. Alright, so I don't need the large burner, so I'm going to put that away. Keep that just in case I'm cooking with a frying pan or something. It just kicks out quite a bit more heat. So this is bioethanol. I'm going to drop some of that. Oh, he says he drops it onto the mat like an umpty. I'm going to pop some of that into there, and there's a little carbon felt inside which soaks up the fuel, and that's it. I'm not going to put any more in there now. That soaked up the fuel so it doesn't spill out everywhere. Pop it onto there, pop that over there. I'm just going to let a bit of that fuel evaporate off before I light it so that we don't set fire to everything. I'll pop some water in there. So the great thing about these types of stove is they're completely silent. They don't give off much odour when they're burning, unless you burn methylated spirits in them. If you burn methylated spirits in them, it's got quite a distinct smell as methylated spirits, and that will give away your position through smell if you're trying to be a bit more stealthy. Bioethanol does have a smell when it burns, but it's nowhere near as strong as meths. Unless you're just going to light that, it's lit. I'm just going to give it literally about 30 seconds to a minute to prime. Bob that onto there. And that's it. That is it. Right, I'll bring you back in a little while. There's been a few dog walkers that have passed through the edge of the woodland where I am, about 150 metres away. I don't know whether they see me or not. They might have done. This particular woodland, like I say, is it's open to everybody. It's open to the public. it's great for a day camp, just to sit here, chill out. The hammock is here as a chair, somewhere to leg back and just chill out. And also if it starts to rain, I've got a bit of a shelter. When I leave here, as you'll see, I leave no trace. It's clear that somebody has been here before though, because there's burnt wood on the ground which looks like it's possibly a few months old. It's not been cleared away properly. Which, if I have a fire, which isn't very often, it's quite rare I have a fire, conditions have got to be right. You're not too dry. If it's too dry, there's no way I'm having a fire. But what I'd always do is make sure that those embers are burnt right down to ash as much as possibly can, because I'll normally use some sort of firebox or wood burning stove, which burn it right down to ash, and I'll bury that ash in a hole in the ground, making sure that it's completely cool. By the time it gets to white ash, it's not burning anymore anyway. And yeah, make sure that I leave no trace and that it's completely safe. I'll let you have a look at this. I've had it for a good few months now. I bought it back in the last summer, I think, autumn time. The X-Boil system's a German-made product. It's had about quite a bit of use as this during that time, so it's looking a bit tatty. However, it still works absolutely perfectly. This is the windshield. It's machined from a piece of stainless steel, very thin, very light stainless steel. It's got these little pot hangers, which these are actually titanium. The original ones that come with it are steel, but I lost those, and I think I left them on a beach somewhere in Anglesey. So I've got the titanium ones. I've got two sets of titanium ones, so that comes apart and sort of rolls smaller and sits inside that titanium cup. And then you've got the stove itself, which is, this is it here, and you'll see there's a little bit of fuel still left in that, but most of it's burnt off, but nothing's going to drip out because it's soaked into that carbon fibre base inside. It's like a sponge. It soaks up in that. It doesn't burn, obviously, itself. It soaks up into that and then slowly evaporates off and burns. So you can't spill fuel onto the floor, because one of the things that you'll often do with alcohol stoves, especially when you first start using them, you'll end up kicking them over by accident or something like that, and then you get fuel everywhere, which obviously instantly ignites. So you don't ever want to be using these inside a tent or anything, or in the vestibule of a tent. I don't know how much it weighs. It's grams, I don't know, 40 grams or something, I don't know. It's nothing. The case is all made from aluminium. Like I say, that's heavier. That's probably about, I don't know, 80 grams maybe. So the whole lot weighs less than 200 grams. Probably less than 150 to be fair, with the pot hangers and everything as well. And then that sits inside that titanium cup, which is very light as well. So it makes for a really good little system for boiling water. You can cook on it if you're cooking something small, just for one. You won't put a great big frying pan on it to cook anything on it, because it won't be kicking out enough heat. That's the fuel I brought with me today. I've used a tiny bit off the top to boil that water. You can see exactly how that holds 250 mils, and I probably haven't put 50 mils in it. I bet I put about 25-30 mils in for that boil, and I could smell there was still some in it, so it probably burned a little bit longer. So it's quite efficient with the fuel as well. I like that sort of serenity, that peace and serenity, so that's one of the reasons why I really like a good quality alcohol burning stove. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I lay in the hammock. There is a method to it. I'm just going to cover my brew. There is a method to it so that you don't fall out and hurt yourself like I did the first few times when I did it. So essentially, I'm going to take hold. You'll notice I've kicked my shoes off. Don't get any shoes unless you really have to, because you're just going to ruin it. If you're shelling out decent money for something like a Hennesey hammock, trust me, you're not going to want to be not caring for it and just, you know, throwing your feet up with your boots on that. You'll want to look after it. You don't want to keep buying these all the time because they're a little bit. Take hold of it, both hands like this. Is how I do it. So I pull myself into it as much as I can. So my bum's as far back as it's going to go at this moment in time. I'm just going to pull this material round a bit more, so I'm sitting on more of the material and less of the mesh. So the mesh is underneath. Okay, then sit in it, pull it towards the back of my kneecaps so it's right under my legs. Yeah. Now I'm going to have one hand here, and I'm going to get one hand on the ridgeline. I'm going to pull myself around, put my legs into it, and I'm going to pull this up at the sides of me at the same time. So it's like it's holding me in. Yeah. So this is wrapped around me, holding me in. And that is it. I'm in it. So this is just using it as an ordinary hammock chair type thing. Obviously you can get inside it into this bit here. When it's at the bottom. Hang on, I'll show you that. I'll show you this. Obviously this would normally sit underneath. You just arrange it so it's sat underneath. But it opens up like that underneath. You climb inside from underneath, and then it snaps shut with the tension. It literally, when your weight's in it, it literally snaps shut. With more force than that, because obviously your body weight tends to create a lot more force to close it. And that's it. That is it. But it looks simple, because I have fallen out of them a couple of times and hurt myself. Often it's been when I've had too much tension on the actual hammock itself, and so when you sit in it, it's not sort of bowing as much like this. It's got a load of tension in it, and then it's slight movements, it can literally just flick you out, and that's what happens. So that's why I set it. Now I found my setting that works for me, the right tension, the right height, is that when I set the hammock, as I did at the start of this video, I set it at my groin height, which is, I don't know, it's probably about just under 3 foot or something from the ground. Because actually when you do put weight into it, it's not going to be 3 foot off the ground. It's like now it's about 2 feet off the ground underneath my backside. But my knees are not quite at 90 degrees, but they're almost at 90 degrees. I could take it a bit higher if I wanted to and have it at 90 degrees, but I'm happy with this height. It's comfortable. It's very comfortable. I injured my back in the gym the other day as well. So this is the first day that it's felt something like that. I've been able to do something like this, so I don't want to be sat too low to the ground. I don't want to be too high either. It just feels just comfortable from my back does this today. And that's it. Oh, that sounded like a pheasant, if you heard that noise. It reminds me of like the old, you know, like the old cars from the 1920s and stuff. Used to have them horns that used to sound like that. That's what it reminds me of when I hear one of those. I'll tell you what, when it's sort of 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you hear that, it doesn't half bloody put the wind up here. You're not expecting it. But yeah, it's another reason why I love this woodland. There's a lot of wildlife in here, so it's just a great place to chill out. It's dense enough that, you know, you're quite sort of inconspicuous really. Take hold of it, both hands like this. This is how I do it. So I pull myself into it as much as I can. So my bum's as far back as it's going to go at this moment in time. I'm just going to pull this material round a bit more, so I'm sitting on more of the material and less of the mesh, so the mesh is underneath. Okay, then sit in it, pull it towards the back of my kneecaps so it's right under my legs. Yeah. Now I'm going to have one hand here, and I'm going to get one hand on the ridgeline. I'm going to pull myself around, put my legs into it, and I'm going to pull this up at the sides of me at the same time. So it's like it's holding me in. Yeah. So this is wrapped around me, holding me in. And that is it. I'm in it. So this is just using it as an ordinary hammock chair type thing. Obviously you can get inside it into this bit here. When it's at the bottom. Hang on, I'll show you that. I'll show you this. Obviously this would normally sit underneath. You just arrange it so it's sat underneath. But it opens up like that underneath. You climb inside from underneath, and then it snaps shut with the tension. It literally, when your weight's in it, it literally snaps shut. With more force than that, because obviously your body weight tends to create a lot more force to close it. And that's it. That is it. But it looks simple, because I have fallen out of them a couple of times and hurt myself. Often it's been when I've had too much tension on the actual hammock itself, and so when you sit in it, it's not sort of bowing as much like this. It's got a load of tension in it, and then it's slight movements, it can literally just flick you out, and that's what happened. So that's why I set it. Now I found my setting that works for me, the right tension, the right height, is that when I set the hammock, as I did at the start of this video, I set it at my groin height, which is, I don't know, it's probably about just under 3 foot or something from the ground, because actually when you do put weight into it, it's not going to be 3 foot off the ground. It's like now it's about 2 feet off the ground underneath my backside. But my knees are not quite at 90 degrees, but they're almost at 90 degrees. I could take it a bit higher if I wanted to and have it at 90 degrees, but I'm happy with this height. It's comfortable, it's very comfortable. I injured my back in the gym the other day as well, so this is the first day that it's felt something like that. I've been able to do something like this, so I don't want to be sat too low to the ground. I don't want to be too high either. It just feels just comfortable for my back does this today, and that's it. Oh, that sounded like a pheasant, if you heard that noise. It reminds me of like the old, you know, like the old cars from the 1920s and stuff. Used to have them horns that used to sound like that. That's what it reminds me of when I hear one of those. I'll tell you what, when it's sort of 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you hear that, it doesn't half bloody put the wind up you. You're not expecting it. But yeah, it's another reason why I love this woodland. There's a lot of wildlife in here, so it's just a great place to chill out. It's dense enough that, you know, you're quite sort of inconspicuous really. I've never heard a squirrel make a noise like that before. Interesting. Right, I'm going to show you how you get in this hammock from underneath. So bear with. So obviously the hammock itself would be arranged so it's on the ridge line like so. I'll just move that around so it's like hanging on the ridge line. You would get underneath it. Let's open that with one hand. You'd get underneath it and pop yourself inside like so. So I've opened that up. That's where it is now. So I would pop inside it like this. Get inside like this. See, I'm still stood on the floor. So behind me is this obviously main bit here. So I'm going to sit on this bit here. I'm going to sit on it. Now it's pulling, it's really pulling here. There's a lot of tension across this bit here. Look at that, loads of tension. So I'm going to pull that foot in first, and then pull the next foot in, and it's going to snap shut, and I'm just going to roll my hand down it just to make sure that it is closed properly, and that is it, I'm in. So the comfiest way to sleep in it is diagonal across like this, and you can actually you can get like flat, literally like a flat sleep in it. That pretty much is it. So inside here you've got this mesh bag that'll hold your phone and some other bits, and you can slide that along the ridge line, put it whichever side you want, and that is it. It is as simple as that. Now that's quite easy with no sleep mat, no under blanket, because that's another thing with the under blanket. It's tricky. Your under blanket is better for, because let's put it this way, you can get these hammocks in a side zip configuration, and that's going to be better for when you're using an under blanket, to be fair, because then you can climb in the side of it, unzip it, climb the side, and literally sit or lay into the under blanket as well. I have used an under blanket with this, but it is a little bit more tricky. And essentially what you're doing is you have to tuck or push the under blanket out of the way. It hangs on bungee cords that you shouldn't snap it. Then you'd climb in, and then what you would then do is you would reach down. You'd reach down into here, and you'd arrange the under blanket so it kind of like just gently hangs underneath. So you've got about an inch, half inch or so underneath you, because it's not meant to be tight to your body. It's meant to leave a bit of a gap so that it can trap warm air. Well, it traps air underneath you. Your body heats up the air, and then it keeps that warm layer of air underneath you. And that's how insulation works. So obviously you can see how like my knees are pushing the shape of it out now. Well, when you put the bungees out, you tie the bungees out, that's the kind of shape it would hold. Doesn't keep it really strongly. I mean, the fastening point is there. Look, there's one there, and then there's one here because I'm kind of like on the side of it. But yeah, that's essentially it. So like now, I'm laid in the middle of it now, so it'd literally be kind of that shape, but it doesn't sort of rigidly keep that shape. It kind of loosely keeps that shape, if that makes sense, because they're on bungees, so that it'll move around. But it is comfortable to sleep in. It is a comfortable night's sleep. You need something for a decent pillow, I find, so I like to have something to prop my head up, and that can be a bit tricky. That can be a bit tricky to get that sorted out, but yeah, don't ever try and sleep in one of these on anything below about 15 degrees at night. If you try and sleep in this below that temperature without an under blanket, you're going to be cold. You can use obviously sleeping pads in them, and some people, I slept in it with a sleeping pad when I first got it. Some people use sleeping pads. I always end up rolling off it in the night and end up being cold. So I slept with a sleeping pad once, and once only, and then I bought an under blanket. Today the temperature is about 16 or 17 degrees out. It's probably a little bit cooler than that now because some cloud come over and we're getting to sort of tea time. So it is a bit cooler. It's maybe about 15 degrees. And I can just feel a little bit of cool air underneath my body, because obviously there's no insulation underneath me right now because all my weight is bearing down on the hammock. So there's a thin piece of hammock which has got no loft in it at all, and then the outside, sort of the cooler air that's sort of moving underneath me. Luckily it's still, it's not windy. If it was windy, I'd definitely feel it. I think, I think it's starting to rain actually. Yeah, it is. Right, it's time to take down camp, so I'm going to do this as part of a hyperlapse. So here goes. that's it. I am definitely getting out of here now I've come out of the woodland. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you all very soon on the next one. Ta-ra for now.